Hello guys, how you doing? This is JP Saricolia, once again coming to you with another book review, and this time I want to review The Iron Man by David Michelinie, Bob Layton, and John Romita Jr. Omnibus. Right here in the front, you can see the art of JR. Definitely is one of the newer art that he does. Pretty cool design. And this, on the side you can see Iron Man. You can see the name of the artist, of course, and there's the JR with the inks of Bob Layton, Volume 1. Here you can see up and coming talents David Michelinie, Bob Layton, and John Romita Jr. joined forces to take on Marvel's Golden Avenger in 1978. That was the year that I was born. And capture lightning in a bottle. You can see right there all the covers, very iconic, some of the most iconic Iron Man covers there. Pretty cool. And you can see collecting Iron Man 115 to 157. Here in the inside of the dust jacket, you see demons in bottles and otherwise. Of course, it's an introduction. Here, an introduction, of course, of the creators. You have David Michelinie, you have Bob Layton, and you have John Romita Jr. Now, inside the book, in the binding, you can see in color, it says the Invincible Iron Man Omnibus. Pretty cool. This has the colors. This is actually when Marvel was actually starting to change colors from pretty much the silver lettering to more colorful lettering. I like it. Very good. Kind of glossy finish there. It says Iron Man, of course, in Marvel Omnibus design. The same thing as Volume 1, and there's nothing in the back. Open in the book, you see this panel, of course, a very famous cover between Iron Man versus Dr. Doom. Collecting, of course, Volume 1, Iron Man 115 to 157, very iconic run. Here you have the table of contents. This is a very classic table of contents for the omnibuses. This is not a new book. This came out a few years back. It's been a couple of years. And I have this book for a while. Iron Man Omnibus, Volume 1, collecting. Of course, the numbers you already saw. The writers, you got David Michelinie, you had Bob Layton. You also have the late Bill Mantlo, Jim Shooter, Roger Stern, Peter John Palmer, Alan Kuperberg. And in the pencils, you have John Romita Jr., you got John Byrne. You got Carmine Infantino, Sal Buscema, Bob Layton, Jerry Bingham, Alan Weiss, Joe Brzezinski, Luke Mcdonald, and Alan Kuperberg, and you can see the letters and more people. This contents starts from October 1978, Iron Man 115, and it goes all the way back, all the way down to April of 1982 in Iron Man 157. Alright, here's the first cover. You see Iron Man Betrayal, pretty cool, by JR. And I want to give an introduction to Iron Man. Iron Man is one of the most iconic characters of the Marvel Universe. Alongside Captain America, Hulk, he's very famous. Everybody recognizes him, very recognizable in the movies, cartoons, comics, video games. Everybody, in one way or the other, they love Iron Man, Tony Stark. He was introduced on Tales of Suspense, number 39, 1963-1964. Originally, Iron Man was created by Stan Lee. Larry Lever, his brother, who did the part of the script. They designed, of course, the story of the character, and also the interior art was done by Don Hick, and the particular design, actually, the design that was done by Jack Kirby. He designed the character. Of course, that was streamlined later on by Steve Ditko, who definitely, I love this cover, who actually give this more streamlined look of the character that is more iconic nowadays. Definitely, I like this cover. Over time, over the years, he was created technically when Stan Lee created the character. Let me just rewind a little bit and go back into a little more of the history. It was the middle of the Cold War, and during that time, a lot of the young generations, there are a couple of things that they hated during that time, particularly in the U.S. and in America. One of them was the Vietnam War, was raging. People did not like war, and this is actually one great cover. This is done actually by Bob Layton. I love this cover. Definitely one of the coolest covers ever. Bob Layton, he did a lot of the covers, and he did a lot of the inking for Romita. The interior art actually by John Byrne, who is definitely one of my favorite artists, as I have mentioned it before. Love what he did here. He really looks cool. I love this big panel, the helicarrier, the shield helicarrier. Love it there. Definitely, you can see the touch of John Byrne in the art. It's pretty cool. Definitely love that the more massive, the physique that he added to Tony Stark. I really love it, of course. I love it. And John Byrne went and did some of the work in later issues after 200, I think 250 or 2 something, 260. That's when he started doing some of the art. And also, well, he was doing some of the writing part. And I think he's doing some of the art alongside with JR. JR has been doing a career actually with Iron Man. Love this one. This is actually JR. And I always going to love this one. This is definitely one of the best panels for Iron Man. John Romita Jr., as you know, he started pretty young in the industry. Thankfully, or thanks to his father, John Romita Sr., who was already a star and a legend in comics. Of course, he started pretty young. And in the beginning, when you see Romita Jr., he develops his art. It's very similar to his father in many ways, but also to many other characters or many other. Love this big splash. Pretty cool. Pretty classic splash. He followed the school of many previous artists. So he was really following. He was very youthful, and you can feel that in his art. And a lot of the ink in here, most of the inking in this book is done by Bob Layton. And you know, he really. I like the combination of Romita and Layton together when they do in the inking. This is another Bob Layton cover. Submariner Strikes. And it's always been one of the most classic. After Tales of Suspense ended, well, not ended, but changed from after issue 99, it became Captain America. Of course, Iron Man went in to do a solo. It was a solo issue where it was Iron Man versus the Submariner, which is a very iconic battle, very iconic thing. If you have seen, there is actually a diorama that was created by the Sideshow Collectibles. Very cool, pretty nice. One of my favorite dioramas that I wish one day I can own to add to my collection. Hopefully one day. So it's based on that. Throughout the years, there's always been this battle, this constant rivalry between those two characters. Very cool. Through the cartoons, even in the cartoons back in the 70s, there was this rivalry. I used to watch the cartoons for the Submariner and also for the cartoons for Iron Man. Pretty cool. I really like it. And you see more famous characters. All of this, I really like it. And I like Bob Layton. Bob does a fantastic Iron Man, and he does a lot of the covers. He knows how to create covers. He's really a great cover artist. You can see right here. Romita Jr. during those times, during those years, of course, he was very young. I heard a lot of people comparing his art, saying that his art was better back then than it is now. I wouldn't say that that's the case. It's a matter of preference. A lot of people like his older art in comparison to this newer art. Mostly because I would say because it is very reminiscent of something that was already established. He followed the establishment, so he was doing what most artists at the time were doing. Sal Buscema. You're looking at Gene Colan, you're looking at those artists that he was pretty much growing with, and the ones that were his heroes, his mentors, his father as well. So a lot of it has to do with it. And look at this, different like this one. This kind of like a reminiscence. This is Cochran and Layton doing the inking. A reminiscence of actually the Iron Man 1 that was done by Gene Colan. That a very iconic cover. And of course another game, the Submariner. This is actually Carmine Infantino, who is a legend within the industry. Of course, he was a legend in comic book industry, and of course you can see the style, Carmine Infantino style, which is very iconic, or also very old school. And there's in this storyline, this story here in this issue is more about kind of bringing back some of the beginnings of Iron Man, how he became Iron Man. And here you can see some of the designs in the art, how it became, what was changing, the evolution. The first one, which was done in this case by Don Heck, and it was actually the actual design here was done by Jack Kirby, and actually Don Heck came with the idea to put some gold on it, and of course Ditko did this, and of course he evolved over time through the different artists, Gene Colan, until of course what you have now, the more modern, which is more streamlined. Look at this cover. This is another Bob Layton's cover, but look at this one. Actually, I love this one. This is actually John Romita again. John Romita, like I said, during those times, I love his design. I love how lively his art was. I don't have a problem with his newer art. I do like his classic style. I do believe that he was in bad. Roger Stern was actually during that time the editor of Marvel. Bob Layton and Roger Stern were friends. They became friends. They started a fanzine. I think the name was CPL, if I'm not mistaken. But that fanzine became very popular, and that's how they end up. Look at this one. I love this one. That's how they end up, kind of go working for Marvel. Bob Layton started inking and doing some art for Marvel UK until, of course, he was part of more mainstream Marvel, particularly with Iron Man and doing work for Hercules. Bob Layton definitely, and this generation, you had Michelinie, who was a great writer during that time. They were young, but they were really doing the best. Whiplash, look at that. All of this. I love this art. It's very classic to me. And of course, and one thing you can say about Iron Man, that no matter what, in all the stories, there's always going to be a beautiful lady. He is a ladies' man. He is not one-sided character. He has different layers of emotions, and I think that's one of the reasons why he has always been extremely popular. He was very popular, and he's still popular. Look at this one. This is another one, another great cover by Bob. And here, of course, you have JR doing this. I always like this cover. Always gonna love it. Definitely pretty cool. If you have seen my review of the Kotobukiya Iron Man, classic Iron Man by Eric Sosa, look at the Avengers. Pretty cool. Definitely, you're gonna see how much I really like this design. Always like it. Scott Lang, who was also created by David Michelinie, definitely is part of the story. He's involved in the story in different parts of it. Really like it. I can say, yeah, of course, and you're always gonna go back to this one. This is one of the most classic, if not the most classic cover in this entire run, back in the 70s and 80s. Definitely one of the most iconic. This is, of course, JR. Love it. There was actually a statue created by Bowen Designs, which reminiscence of this. The only thing I didn't like about that is that the statue's a bit skinny in comparison to this. I always like this. I wish one day there was a statue that resembles this with much better dimensions. But of course, this is definitely a great one. The ink, of course, is by Bob. On JR's drawings, pencil work. But look at that. Definitely. One of the things I can say, I really like the work they're together. I think in this book you're going to notice there's different penciler. Well, there's a few pencilers. There's a few inkers. But the ones that they are better overall, look at this one. He looks pretty cool. The one that is better overall is when Bob and, in this case, JR work together. I think is the best, most defined character. It's when he really looks the best. Look at that. Now the Bob Layton cover. You're going to see a lot of, he was really good cover artist. And he was doing, in this case, Michelinie and Bob were actually creating the stories. Bob was being a co-plotter. So the three of them team up to do the art. In this case, Michelinie as a writer creating the stories, and Bob doing some of the co-plotting and also doing the covers, while JR was doing the art that you see in most of this book. Very, very, very good art. Very popular art. And one of the things, and here we go into one of the most famous parts of this story, which is Demon in a Bottle. During that time, one of the things about that really kind of caught everyone by surprise is that this book dealt also with other things like alcohol abuse. In this case, with one of the things that we have seen mostly nowadays, very cool. I love this one, the way he's looking at it. JR art is good there. And this cover is actually by Bob. And I really love it. I really love this. Is just a very darker theme, in this case, for the times. This is when comics were exploring new ground in regards to how to talk about certain themes that were not as discussed, but they were part of, life, particularly in a time like this, alcohol abuse. So they were given the green light. They wanted to change something. One of the parts that they, if you can read through the interviews and things that I have seen before, especially with David Michelinie, when he is asked about what prompted him to create this storyline or create other storylines and make this iconic character shine during this time. And he said that there was a lot of novelty in Tony Stark, but in a lot of ways, he's battling his own fears, his own personal demons throughout the circumstances that he is going through. through his business, through a lot of things. So he wanted to give that normality. He says there's a lot of things that people cannot relate to. And he was in one of those interviews. A lot of people cannot relate with certain issues, like if you come from Krypton, like someone comes from another planet. It's hard to relate to that. The ability to fly, the ability to do certain things. But you can relate, maybe he was not as a millionaire or billionaire like Tony Stark, but you can relate with some of those issues like alcohol abuse, with alcoholism, something that is more in touch with everybody, something that is not respecter of a financial position or social circumstance. A lot of people know and they have experienced it one way with their family members, whether themselves or with other people around them. So there's something that people can relate, and that's something that about stories is all about making something relatable. And I think that was the key, and that's always been the key of some of the comic book stories. And this is just Bob Layton work. He's doing his own inking. I can tell you about this. I like Bob's pencils. I'm not a fan of him inking himself for some reason. It's okay. He's not bad, but I feel that he's a much better inker when he's inking someone else than when he's inking his own work. But that's just my opinion. Of course, everyone might disagree. Everybody has a different opinion. You might disagree with me. And this, I like this cover. This is another Bob Layton cover. Pretty cool cover with the Hulk. But this art is actually Jerry Bingham, and I like Jerry Bingham. I really do. His art, it's okay. I wouldn't say that I prefer more than JR. I think I like JR more, but I do like some of his panels, and I'm going to go in detail in a moment in some of them so you can see it. He's more classic. Of course, everything you have seen so far is primarily classic layout. And that's, like I said, back in those days, we didn't have the 90s style. You didn't have the crazy panels. Everything was more classic. And, of course, JR followed the same trend because that was the norm. And every artist during that time did it, particularly during this time. But, I do like this. And, Bingham is a more classic penciler. And you're going to see it through the art that you have here. Look at that. All of this is very, very good. I actually like this issue more than the previous one. I like what he does here. And this is still Jerry Bingham. And Bob Layton, he's doing the inking. And Bob, he is definitely a great inker. I love the way he does here. Bruce Banner. This is extremely cool. And this is a battle between Bruce Banner, of course, the Hulk, and Iron Man. And Jerry does a phenomenal, of course. Actually, he keep up well with the art. Really look good. They're in St. Louis, Missouri, destroying the Ark. And here you see the battle, classic panel layout. This is the one that I fell in love with with Jerry Bingham's art. Actually, this is the one that convinced me that he was not bad at all. Look at that. How lively that is. This is, of course, Jerry Bingham doing the art, but it's Bob Layton doing the inking. That's a great panel. You can have that panel in a poster, and that's going to look cool. It really definitely is well defined. It's very extreme, of course. And here you go. Definitely. That cover is great. There's another Bob Layton cover. Here you go. Scott Lang, The Astonishing Ant-Man, which have enjoyed the recent movies. Definitely, it's another creation of David Michelinie that has been included into this. The movies, the Ant-Man movie, the Iron Man movies, all the stuff, they have taken a lot of cues from this actually run. This run is very iconic. Most of the modern additions or the modern examples or everything that has been known now about in this case for Iron Man, what we know about Iron Man has been taken from here. It took some cues from here, inspiration from here, from this particular run, which, it really expanded. It was nothing new. It really expanded the classic Iron Man. The same way John Byrne's take on the Fantastic Four expanded the Fantastic Four that was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. I think Bob and Michelinie and JR really took a lot of inspiration from the classic Iron Man and brought it here. And that's what I really like. I love when artists respect the original material. And that's something that I know it's hard. And, Jerry, he's very good and a female body here. Like you said, there's a lot of female body in this. But I think it's always important to really bring and to honor the original art and the artist and the intention. And yes, I think characters evolve over time. Things change. Nothing remains the same, but the more you respect these characters, the better you do. I think in the end for a lot of with the fans. The fans have an idea, mindset already created for this. You have to respect that so you can grow the character even more, and from that you can build upon the original creation. And I feel that that's some of the biggest problems that we have encountered in comics in recent years, that artists are changing the beginning of the origin stories just to fit some type of agenda, whether it's social, political, or own personal, or just for the wow factor, just to wow people into buying something by changing the principles that started this comics, changing even whether it's the sexual preference, whether it's the race, whether it's the if the gender or the religion, all of that. When you start messing around with the characters, you are knocking at the door of disaster, particularly with a lot of fans. I don't have a problem with characters of diverse backgrounds. I don't have a problem with even with characters with different sexual preference. I don't have a problem with any of that, as long as you create characters that represent those values, instead of just messing with something that has been already established for more than 50, 60, 70 years. And that's something that, I feel that nowadays we have a lot, and, we see more and more, which is really sad to see, and that's really destroys these characters and changes the principle. And that's something that I feel that a lot of times people say, well, we want to see stories like this. And I understand we wanted to see stories that are different, but the problem is I feel that there's lack of creativity, that sometimes creators, in this case, or Marvel studios or editors, they just want to use the same old characters and change them a bit. Just they trying to take advantage. To me, that's lazy writing, that's lazy creation, trying to take advantage of their traits and of these characters that have been created and then just mold them to their own personal view. And I feel that that's one of the biggest problems we are facing in comic books today. And I think that's what's causing more and more harm than good. Now, looking at this, Toys R Us, now just to look at it make me sad. We're in a Toys R Us shopping spree. Definitely gonna miss Toys R Us no matter what. But here you go, Bob Layton. He's doing the art by himself. He's doing good. I like it. It's not bad. He also is inking himself. He can do good. He's good at inker. I don't think he's better than others in the inking part. Like I said, I love when he inks JR. But look at this. This is another Bob Layton cover. He explores a lot of issues. There's a lot of introductions here. A lot of characters that were introduced. Rhodey, for example, was introduced in this run. His friend, his confidant. We have a lot of people, a lot of very famous members or characters in his story. They are here. A lot of the conflicts that he's dealing with, and the things that he deals with, and things that we have seen in the movies, that we have seen in his stories, all of that took inspiration from this book. I really like it. I really enjoyed this. This is another great cover, and here you got another Romita Jr. Art. But I would say a lot of people, like I said before, didn't really like or did like Romita. They really enjoyed Romita back in those days, but he reflects a lot of the classic art paneling and the classic art drawing. That changed, of course, in the 90s and the 2000s. That's when he started changing and evolving into what he's more known nowadays. A lot of people are really unhappy, and a lot of older fans are disgruntled with him or unhappy with him, and dissatisfied, and they voice their opinion everywhere. And they say, well, he changed too much, he has become lazy about it. I don't think he has become lazy. I think he was just trying to define his own style that was totally different than his father or anyone that was before him, and the people that he took inspiration from. Another great thing about this run is that introduce the different suits, like for example the outer space suit. And if you know, like I said before, with Bowen Designs, he created a lot of different suits for the character, which, there are tons of them. And here's one of them, the different suits. And you can see they explore ideas about the Vietnam War. That's the greatest aspect of, I would say, of these characters. Being able to explore things about war, about weapons, about the effects of war and people and nations. And all of that, of course, was explored through Iron Man, which definitely makes it a great character. I can tell you one thing. I was not a fan of Iron Man growing up. I watched the cartoons, I knew Iron Man through the Avengers. I read some of the stuff, but I was never really a fan of Iron Man. It was actually, and I'll be honest with you, it was through the movies that came, the original movie, which actually it started the MCU, Iron Man 1, that really kind of got my attention into Iron Man. That's when I really started reading Iron Man. And I decided, to start reading the classic Iron Man stories. That's how I got into Iron Man. Again, I was never really a fan. I always found it to be, in my opinion, in my vision, Iron Man is that he was just a one single-sided character. But as much when I started exploring it, I realized that there was layers and more layers. And I think the movies have done a great job, particularly Robert Downey Jr. as an actor has been able to portray the character to a T. Some of those layers, and you can see that in the movies. You love and hate the guy, and the same way you do with Tony Stark. You love him, hate him, but deep inside, he is a good man that wants to do the right thing. Although sometimes he doesn't know how to do it or how to approach things. And there's a definition. There's gray areas in Iron Man, but ultimately he's gonna choose to do the right thing, and I feel that that's something that has been done well in the movies, when you can see that he is more he allows some of his fears and control them, and something that we had seen with Demon in a Bottle, things that kind of control his actions and attitudes and his behavior and decisions. But ultimately, in the end, he is a man that wants to do the right thing, and that's something that we can all, in one way or another, we can all relate. Like, it's easier to relate to situations like that. Not everyone is totally decent as Captain America, with desire to be like Captain America, with desire to be as good as he is, with the same values, but sometimes we fall short, and we are more like Iron Man. We're more like Tony Stark in many ways, but in the end we still are heroes. And that's the principle. I think that's one of the things that I read, and actually it's included in this here, in one of those introductions to the story. He is relatable because we can see ourselves reflected in his image. That heroes are not just the person that have the superpowers. It's the people that in the end, no matter the circumstances, choose to do the right thing regardless of the consequences. And that's something that we can say is well reflected in the adventures of Iron Man. I love this. Of course, this is the panel, the very famous issue number 150, Doctor Doom. I really like it. They go into the past, they get trapped in the past, and they go to Camelot. Definitely a pretty interesting story. Two knights, in this case, Iron Man and Doctor Doom, fighting in Camelot. So it was cool. All of these ideas, concepts, really make you think of a lot of things. It's definitely one of the coolest part of this story. The art is good. I like how he's doing here. J.R. is expanding some of his art. He's doing a more open layout, bigger layouts, which is good, which is very young and fresh during that time. I really like it. It's another Layton cover. You can see. Love it. This is Luke McDonald. I like his art. It's okay. It's part of the story. And this time, Bob Layton was not as... He was working some stuff. He was not there. This is more a story of Scott Lang. Pretty cool. Love this. I love the Ant-Man and the Wasp. Really great movie, too. Here's the stealth. I love this new stealth armor. Pretty cool. This is when we start seeing more armors coming through. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. J.R.'s art again. Definitely the highlight of this book. But yes, some people don't like his newer art. I don't have a problem with it. I feel that, like I said before, he was trying to redefine himself apart from, his parents. And you know what? You can give to our J.R. He has been in the industry for years. He was there in the 70s. He was there in the late 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. He's been working for these companies for so long. And man, if producing so much art, he's been involved in so much art. It's just amazing. You can give him credit for that. I think he has surpassed whatever. No matter what people say, he has surpassed even what his father did. So I think his father would be proud what he has done. But looking at this, this is a very extensive book, as you can see. There's a lot of stories here. This is just the first part. It ends technically when in this case. the Bob Layton and Michelinie and J.R.J.R. stopped working together. After this ends, actually O'Neill took over, and he worked in the book for almost, I think, over 50 issues before he came back again a few years later to another, the Armor Wars, which was a 7 issue series with Michelinie and Layton, and then of course Michelinie stayed even another 45 issues more before actually John Byrne took over with J.R.J.R. So definitely Michelinie has been a big part of Iron Man, and Bob Layton as well, you know, as an inker. Look at this cover. Love it. Love that one. Look at this art. These are different artists, but pretty cool. Then we come into the extras. Actually, these are actually recolor pages of some of the previous issues, like you can see right here. It's cool that they added. This came out later on with the more digital recoloring. Not a fan. You know, actually, I like recoloring, but this is not the greatest recoloring ever. At least it's included here. And it's good. Too bad that they didn't include, like they did with other collections, the Armor Wars. That's the only thing that I'm dissatisfied with this book, is not having the Armor Wars, which was still Bob Layton and David Michelinie working together. And of course, there's extras. And these are 2 previous covers before this run it started. You have 113 and you have 114, which actually was Romita Jr. doing the art. So that's the reason they're included here as extras. But here are what if Iron Man had an eating problem instead of a drinking problem. Cool. Very funny. Here you see some panels, some layouts. Bob Layton actually doing the profile, doing the you know, as you can see, he's very good too. Bob Layton not only in his cover, but in his art. Here you can see there's more extras. There's plenty extras. Love the extras. You know, to me, extras are like good. You know, if you get more extras, the better to me. And of course, I love this interview. These are introductions, the Michelinie that did to trade paperbacks. Demon in the Bottle, this is the one, and this is Doom Quest, the premiere. And of course, you can see more magazine covers. Demon in the Bottle, love it. Love this one. And this is Mcdonald, actually. This is not, you know, Bob Layton or J.R.J.R. But this is cool. Definitely a lot of cool information here. A lot of cool art. And a lot of cool extras. In conclusion, do I recommend this book? That's a tough question. And I would say why. I do recommend this for Iron Man fans. If you're an Iron Man fan and you love Iron Man, particularly the 70s, 80s classic Iron Man, this is definitely for you. If you're more modern Iron Man, not necessarily you need to have this, because we have seen so many revisions of Iron Man and they all kind of follow the same trend. So definitely it's not like a must-have per se for everyone, but it is a must-have for those that grew up with the art and love Iron Man, this classic Iron Man. This is not a new book. It came out a few years back. I've been owning this book for a couple of years and definitely loved it. It was not really, I don't think there was a lot of fanfare when it came out. A lot of people were crazy about it. So it took a while for that to sell, and I'm sure that you can still find it. But definitely it's one of the classic Iron Man's stories, in my opinion, one that you should read and understand. It is very 80s, very 70s, late 70s, early 80s in his approach to the character. But definitely really represents the character well. And through this, actually, most of the stories that we know now for Iron Man, they came about, the ones that we have seen in the movies, interpretations that we see in the cartoons, and a lot of the inspiration that has allowed for a lot of the decisions that Tony Stark has done over the years in comics have come from this. Definitely it's something that you need to look at. If you can find it, I highly recommend it. If you cannot, if it's not a must-have per se, but it's one that definitely, if you are a fan of this artist, J.R.J.R. initial art, or Bob Layton's inking and covers, and overall a fan of Michelinie's writing, is something that you will really enjoy. Definitely is one of the best works that they did, one of the best jobs from Michelinie besides Spider-Man stuff. And of course, as you know, those artists have progressed. Michelinie, still a writer. Bob Layton went and created Valiant Comics, and until then he sold it, but he still does a lot of cover stuff, for himself, a lot of stuff. He does a lot of conventions. And J.R.J.R., as you know, he's just He's everywhere. You know, he's with DC, with Marvel. He does everything. So definitely great artist. I really recommend it that you at least check it out. At least check it out. The stories, Demon in a Bottle, and some others included in this book. So once again, thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell so you can get notified every time there's a new video. Don't forget, every Saturday morning we get you get some new book review, and don't forget to follow me and keep watching my content, and follow me on the different platforms, social platforms. So once again, thank you, my friends. God bless you. I'll see you next time.